an art residency is something, I mean, at least at Cité, because it's something where the artist should feel safe or protected. This is the word they used during COVID. And they said, all my projects were cancelled. Everything was cancelled, but I felt protected so I could renew myself and I could transform my vision of things and I could start again.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. And I think so hospitality, in that sense, providing a safe space, and whatever happens outside.
Hello, good morning. My name is Sandra Bustillos. I'm the curatorial director of Ayarkut, and here we are in our second edition of Pages, where we will be talking this time with Bénédicte Alliot, director of Cité de las Arts. Now I give the word to Ana Ertigina, and maybe you can introduce us to Bénédicte.
Yes, thank you, Andrea. As a founding director of IPRland Cultural Agency, I co-curate the series with Ayarkut, and I will moderate the talk today. So let me introduce our guest, Bénédicte Alliot. She has a degree of a doctorate degree in English studies and used to be a lecturer at University of Paris Diderot until 2002. And after an academic career, she started her career in cultural diplomacy, which is really exciting for me, since I really like this field. So she was a director of French Institute in South Africa in Johannesburg, and then cultural attaché at French Embassy in New Delhi, India. And then she had the cultural seasons at the Institut Français in Paris. So there she worked with state-to-state festivals, city-to-city festivals, and since early 2016, she became a director of the Cité Internationale. This residency center we are talking about today. And this is one of the oldest residency institutions that I know, and it's such exciting institution. So maybe we can ask you first a little bit about the history of the organizations.
Well, hello everyone. Thank you for the invitation. Cité Internationale des Arts, which is located on two sites in Paris and very centrally located. One is next to where I'm talking to you from, is in the Marais, just next to the Seine River. So that's you can't make it more central in Paris. And the other one is in Montmartre, very famous for its 19th century, especially 19th century paintings with Renoir or Pissarro. And we have there a second site where we welcome 30 residents since 1971 in Montmartre. And in the Marais, we're welcoming close to 300 artists at the same time on a site that was given to us more or less by the city of Paris, and since 1965. So in 2025, in 2 years' time, we're going to celebrate 60 years of welcoming artists from all over the world, including France. And so it's probably going to be also a figure of around 35,000 artists from around the world that have come through Cité for temporary residencies.
It's amazing.
It is so impressive and quite unique that you can host over 300 artists at the same time. So can you please help us navigate between different programs that you have? Because I think you have many, right?
Yeah, so I don't think I could do that, but I think we would need a bit of, we would need to extend the time of our conversation. But put it in a nutshell, we have, Cité has constructed its residencies through partnerships with either private foundations or public organizations, including ministries of culture, but not only that, public organizations at large. And so we have a substantial number of international partners. The majority is in Europe, the European Union, but also Europe, as an extended space, but also we have long-lasting friendships with partners in Asia, Japan, China, and Australia in the Pacific Ocean, and so we have partners with organizations from the 5 continents, but we'll probably get to this later, with fewer numbers of partnerships in some areas, including Latin America or the African continent. So we have been working quite extensively on trying to focus and develop new partnerships with organizations from those areas and others, but I won't go into the list. So altogether, in total, it's approximately 150 programs, residency programs that we have, and that we run with 150 partners from all over the world, again, including France. So I think we can talk about the way that we select the artists, and we do that in general with the partners. And we'll speak maybe about the jury later, but there is a selection process, and there is and the duration also of the residency changes according to the program that we have. So on average, every year, international artists, or artists coming from abroad and living abroad, coming here, apart from Europe, come for an average duration of 3 months. Why? Because 3 months is the duration of a Schengen visa. It's as simple as that. Mm-hmm. And then people who are living on European soil or on French soil often come longer. For artists coming from further, it's a question then of negotiating if they want to stay more, or if the project that they have to come to Cité requires that, we will go into negotiations with, the consulates and everything, to try and obtain a visa that extends to more than 3 months. I don't know if that's clear, but yes. The visa question is also of the essence, and this is also why maybe because of that framework that might seem a little bit limited for us, it makes no sense to fly in an artist from wherever, actually, for just 1 month. 1 month in Paris is probably 1 month in New York or Mexico, whatever. It's just too short. And so, because the artist comes with a project that he will want to research on, or she will want to research on, but also we open up our professional networks, and so that also takes time. So 3 months actually go very, very, very quickly.
Right, it's the same in New York, because large city, a lot of events. So it takes time to just understand where to go, how to navigate in the city and cultural scene, and to meet people, of course. So in one of the previous interviews, you referred to artists as the main asset of the organizations. It's just a very beautiful idea. And what elements of your program help them to find each other, or to meet each other, or to interact and get into conversations?
There's lots that we're trying to do, that we've been trying to introduce or restate at Cité since I came. I wrote a new project for Cité, and with my wonderful team, we're trying to also not only assist artists in, achieving what they came for, but an individual project, an individual research. But we also try to assist them or activate the community of artists. Maybe I said that it was an asset, but I think it's a treasure. Actually, it's a treasure for us working, side by side with them. That's I have an amazing job, but that's for sure. But it's also because it's a treasure, because I don't think we find very few places in France, for sure. It's just apart from airports and international airports, you can't find anything more international than Cité Internationale des Arts. And I think that has a value and has had a value. It's been invaluable ever since its creation. It's extraordinary. It's an extraordinary opportunity for artists to be able to meet, their peers from wherever and whatever their practice is, and to engage in conversations. And they can be artistic conversations, they can be formal, regarding form, but also content, and in whatever language. The language will be probably the language of their medium also, sometimes when they don't have a language in common. But that is a treasure. And I think this is something that we need so we've been trying, and we're trying to activate this through the very strong cultural programs that we are organizing, cultural and artistic programs that we're organizing both in Montmartre and in the Marais, with open studios every Wednesdays between 6 and 9 p.m. That's now a very, it's a set meeting, and for
open
40. What?
Did you say open studios every Wednesday?
Every Wednesday, open studios. And open studios that are not in great numbers. They're between 6 to 10 open studios that can take the shape, of course, of an artist opening his space or her space and showing his works there. Or maybe he's a performer or a musician and will perform in our auditorium. Or we have also 3 big exhibitions in our gallery every year. And so in those exhibitions that are thematic exhibitions, we will, and collective exhibitions, we always make sure that artists that have been at Cité or that are still at Cité are exhibited as well. And we have right now fantastic exhibition. I'm saying this because I did not curate it. So it's a fantastic exhibition called Trailblazers on feminisms stemming from the 1970s and transnational feminisms up to now. And we're trying to draw or pull the threads of the questions of that time until today. And of course, as you can imagine, the questions are mostly the same.
Yes, it's very actual.
And so there are exhibitions, there are places where the open studios are also an important way for artists to meet. I think the most important mission that we have at Cité is first to be able to make possible encounters in between the artists. Encounters and so long-lasting, friendly or solidarity bonds in between them. And this is what they tell us years later, is the fact that they have made those contacts, they have collaborated, etc. And then the second step will be, of course, to introduce them to our professional networks in Paris or even beyond.
Yeah, it sounds like a very long-lasting impact. And do you have any artists that come back after some time, or is it always, maybe it's a limitation of only one participation?
No, that's also very good. It's very important for us to be able to, as long as the artist will reapply to a given program, to make space for space and time. Mm-hmm. Residency is a very particular time, a very particular frame, and also the temporality of a residency is very, very particular. So we make sure that artists who need to come back to Paris because they haven't finished the project, they have another one, if that makes sense, and of course on the basis that they are selected amongst all the artists that apply, they are welcome to come back. And it's a way for us to also follow up on some of the artists' path. I don't like to say career, but the way that, and it's a way for us to be able to assist them, throughout the years. And I was mentioning the Schengen visa, but the fact that a lot of the residencies are 3 months long. It's for the reason of the visa, but it's also a reason, a financial reason. The funding that we get, excuse me, that we get, is obviously not unlimited. I mean, you guys know what we're talking about. So we'd rather invite an artist where we're almost sure that he will get or she will get the visa to come for 3 months, and then maybe a year later or 2 years later, that person will reapply and can come back. And that second time is such an added value, because they've been the first residency where you get acquainted to, you situate yourself within Paris, within that new scene, that international scene at Cité, but the French scene at large. And then you need to situate yourself. And then the second time, you have had time to digest, to pursue the work. And when you come back, it's much more impactful. And so we invite over, or re-invite over, curators, for example. We've had these long-lasting friendships with curators from Iran, or writers from Cameroon, a playwright from Martinique, that's the French Republic, but it's far away, overseas territory, etc., etc.
Yeah, well, it's I love that you have programs for curators specifically, because I think it's just not enough opportunities for curators internationally, and it's very important to keep, as you say, keep relationship and re-invite them. So maybe we can talk a little bit more about curatorial programs that you offer. Are they also based on open call?
Yeah,
or by, maybe. Okay.
They're mainly based on open call, but what I first did when I came in 2016 was I noticed that, there are curators all over the place, but they were probably even more invisible than artists, or more invisibilized. I don't know how to say this in English, invisibilisé. And that was a problem. It's always, and so first what I did was in 2017, I invited to stay on our site in the Marais, where they have their offices now, is a big association of curators from France called the organization is called CEA, Commissaire d'Exposition Associés, and they have 700 or 1,000 members all over the territory. And it was, for me, it made sense that they could work from Cité itself, so that they could be in contact on a daily basis, if they wished to, with the artists coming through Cité from all over the world, and all generations. That's something I should have pointed out right from the beginning, is that there is no age limit, and that's very, very, very important for us. So we have very young artists, but we have also artists that are very experienced, to put it. To put it that way, but it's so, and that is for us, the question of transmission in the framework of a conversation is very important. And transmission, of course, goes both ways. And it's not just the old transmitting to the young, but it's the other way around. And that is a very exciting thing happening at Cité. So to get back to the curators, sorry, but that was important. But to get back to the curators, we thought that because we had also a majority, that's like that. The applications come, the majority is visual artists, right, that apply. It's one explains that the explanation is easy because there's a lack of space, of working space also, in France and in Europe for artists, but it's for visual artists. But it's been like this ever since the beginning at Cité. So that's another subject, but that's why I opened up on other practices. But the curators was also something that we thought we should organize and structure some programs so that curators from abroad could come here and be exposed both to the international scene at Cité, but also to the French scene, to get an understanding of how it works here. And then the other way around was also to be able to create programs for French curators or curators based in France, whether they're foreign or French nationals, it doesn't matter. But as long as they're based in France, to invite them for a 6 months to a 1 year residency, so they can work with this international community. And often these are young curators. So this residency was, we did it with the CNAP, le Centre National des Arts Plastiques, which is a visual arts national center in France, a very huge public institution that supports curators. And so they co-fund that program with us. Okay. But another example, if I may finish with curators, is for example, we've for the 50th year of the coup in Chile, of Pinochet's coup, and Allende's assassination, with the Ministry of Culture in Chile, we developed a double program, one for an artist, but the second for a curator from Chile, which is, I mean, you know, it's far, but it's fantastic. It's fantastic to know that curators will also be able to come that far and to get acquainted with an international scene and a French scene. And then the last one, and it's a double program. It's with the we are doing it with the French Institute in Nigeria, and we have an open call for a junior curator from Nigeria to come for a residency for 3 months. We appoint a mentor that is going to assist him or her during the residency. And the second residency is for a senior curator. I'm very happy because we're going to launch this early 2024, and it's going to be on invitation. So, you know, different kinds of, and we have other curatorial programs, but since we have many, but it's to give you, a kind of.
But how many curators on average, like during the year you have? Because I understand you have 300 artists at the same time, but they also change through the year. And how about curators? Are they also on site all the time, and maybe 20 people? Like how many?
I guess it's out of during the year. I'm not talking about the CEA guys who are there on a permanent basis and very active with the community, but otherwise there must be maybe, I would say, depending on the year, maybe 30 on average.
Yeah.
I would like to go back to the criteria of selection and, well, like the process of application. As I understand, artists can apply either directly through Cité or through the partners. But also, like, maybe you can tell us a little bit more. No, I'm mistaken. So please.
I think that was the old times.
Okay.
What I really thought would be good, and would be good also for the artist, is to know through what channels they are being selected. And first of all, that there's a selection process. So we have programs with our partners, and we run our own programs, but it's all on the basis of having a jury with where I will be on the jury, my colleagues and the partners are also represented. Plus, we invite experts or I mean professionals from the arts and cultural field, be they French or foreign, for that matter. And so each program has a different jury. You
Yes.
And
right.
And so and then the programs can be curatorial, it can be visual arts, but it can also be thematic in a way that we will want to to focus on artists that will work more specifically on ecology and urbanism. I'm saying this, but that kind of musicians come. What?
I think so. The selection criteria, I think, are different because of the programs are so different. But there, I think, something which is maybe common to all of them is maybe experimentation as one of the key values, I think, of the organization, and maybe also language skills, English language and French.
Language. Language is. If I forget, please remind me of speaking, but that will be the last. I think Andrea also was pointing to that. I mean, one of the criteria is experimentation, I'll get to that, but one of the criteria is also the fact that the residency should have a link with Paris or the French territory. So it does not mean that you necessarily have to work on Notre Dame or whatever, but a lot of, since our residencies here are very much research-based, we have a lot of artists coming for archives, but also coming because they need the kind of networks or they need the kind of community that we have here. So the link with Paris is, but for example, someone who, I don't know, works in I don't want to say a country because they won't like it, but it's, comes from far because he has an exhibition where he lives and he's just coming to work on his exhibition, and the exhibition is totally dissociated from Paris or from the community here. No, there's no sense of actually he or she could do it anywhere. So the moment that you can do it anywhere is for us a question. I mean, just a question, not saying that the project is bad. It's just the fact that they are spaces that could welcome him or her, and not necessarily at Cité. The fact that we're research-based is also, I think it's an interesting, it's an important thing to point out, is the fact that we do have some spaces for production, but it's more experimenting. So it's more the phases prior to any kind of huge production. So we do work with the Palais de Tokyo, we do work with Pompidou at times, etc. But it's when the artists are in the phase, mostly in the phase of research. And for playwrights or for theater plays and so on, we are always very much, even though we have an auditorium, but it's quite small, it's the initial phases. And so experimentation for us is super important, and it's super important also to for us to get the message through. I mean, in the sense that I don't know how you guys feel, but it is difficult, or it has been difficult, to convey how important art residencies are, and not just for artists, for society, etc., etc. Because there is that need for experimentation, there is that need for the time for research is human and is very, very important. And it's something that conveying this, but I've been here almost 8 years now, and I think we are now starting to be identified also in Paris as what we are, an art residency with a cultural programs showing sometimes fragile work from artists. Fragile in the sense that they're taking risk because it's finished, but maybe not so finished, etc. But it's a beautiful. It's one of those beautiful moments, and I think it's a very important thing to politically support the fact that experimenting explains why then there are things that end in museums, etc., 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 etc. And that phase of research is also something that should be made more visible. And so this is what we're trying to do in a very discreet way. We are also financially in a very difficult situation, so it's very modest. But I think that modesty, or being humble in front of all these artists that are, trying to find the right form, etc., is very, very important, and especially now with the crazy world we live in.
Oh, I mean, I agree totally, and I also it's a very precious and very fragile, as you say, state of mind of being. And sometimes I also have these thoughts, supporting and working with some artists that, okay, I shouldn't say these kind of words, or maybe I should, because it can have a strong impact, because the process is so fragile. So, and it's very important, I agree as well, for them to have feedback, to have someone to share ideas in the, before they are even finalized. That's true.
But so this is also why we do create spaces for them to meet informally, also to get sometimes to start the conversations. But then during the open studios, and they get to meet each other, they get to understand more what each other does, works on.
I'm curious, how do they just sign up, like 6 participants each week, or do you arrange, visits with local curators? Or
yeah, the open studios, we organize them according to their wish, but we have to organize them. Sometimes we have to limit the number, because what we want to value is, because even 6 to 8 open studios is quite something within a framework of 3 hours, but it's to enable professionals to really meet the artist and engage in a conversation. During COVID, we remained open, and which was good, because artists were stuck. They couldn't, because of the borders being shut. So I fundraised so that they could stay, and so we remained open. And at some point, I think after the second lockdown, we had a curfew here, and we were allowed to have gatherings of 4 people and then 6. And so we decided that with 4 people, we would invite 3 professionals to meet 1 artist, because we had the permission to do that. And then the professionals came out of that and said, it's nice. It's actually nice, because I had the time to meet the artist. And it was such a beautiful thing that we kept it. So we keep these formats, and we organize also separately to the Wednesdays more private encounters. And during the fairs, we do organize for Paris Plus Art Basel. We had, a delegation of collectors and curators from all over the world coming to check trailblazers, but also we organize studio visits. And so it's that diversity of professionals, and so that diversity of conversations which I think enrich also the artist, and the artist also gets more confident in how to speak about his work in whatever language. I don't want to forget your question about language. No, because it is very interesting. Okay, on the practical aspect of things, we do provide French classes for beginners and conversation classes. Just simply because, France has improved in the past decades, but still, English is, we're getting better, but we're quite bad at languages, and it's, it's part of our DNA, I guess. But it's important for artists, and not just artists who are in exile, because we do have substantial programs welcoming artists in exile, but it's important that they should actually take that step of trying to learn French. However, it's also, so there's English or Globish. We speak a Globish language at Cité, and which is Globish French or Globish English, and then I have some of my colleagues speak perfect Arabic, German. We have these rules also within the team.
Yeah, well, so I want to say that I really like the whole program, and especially your understanding of what a residency means, both for the artists and curators. I love how you frame it in this kind of time and space to work and to think and to experiment. I think that's very important to make a point on it. It's a time for artists to be very focused on their work, and maybe kind of not dealing with outside daily life stress or whatever, and having that time to focus and to work and collaborate with other artists. I think it's very important, the dialogue between artists, curators, mentors, people from outside that come and see the work and talk to you about it. I think that's it's always a huge input, and it makes the artist grow, the work grow in terms of conceptualizing, talking about it. I think it's very important. So I think it's a great job what you're doing. And also in terms of the city, you also mentioned that, and I think it's very important, to make a point on the importance of having this space in the city and making the city more international, more cultural through the artists. I think that's amazing. So
what you were mentioning, Andrea, I think it's I told you, you cannot stop me. Now it's
I love it.
It's about the temporality. I think it's about how do you I think I mentioned that, how do you also we've been like many others working a lot on what is hospitality, especially after COVID, but also in view of the fact that there's no written story or history of Cité yet. So we have developed these new series of exhibitions that are called immersions, living archive, that are about the creation. We try to narrate the how Cité was created, why, who was behind it, the key people, and also there's a theme that we always work on every year. So this year was hospitality, and I think a residency. I mean, this is what I wanted to. An art residency is something. I mean, at least at Cité, because it's something where the artist should feel safe or protected. This is the word they used during COVID, and they said, all my projects were cancelled. Everything was cancelled, but I felt protected, so I could renew myself and I could transform my vision of things, and I could start again.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. And I think so hospitality, in that sense, providing a safe space, and whatever happens outside. So I'm saying this because maybe the question was not anticipated, but it's important also because we have such a big community of international artists, more, and on average 1,000 every year, 325 at the same time. One has to really take the political stance of neutrality, and neutrality is a very strong decision.
Absolutely.
To take, but it does provide the space and the time for artists to work whatever they need to work on. And the second thing is the conversations are conversations being together. And so, I mean, I'm sorry if it's totally normal for you, but I think in the context where we are, at least in Europe, it's in Europe, when we look at how things go crazy and terrible, it's very important to provide a safe space where we can disagree, where there's a space for dissent.
Completely.
There's necessarily space for dissent and disagreement, but we should learn, or we should make that space for people to voice it in a way that it's audible, and then dissent becomes constructive. This is something that we are working on, especially since COVID, actually, a lot.
So do you mean you also organize like publicly open conversations, like a discussion with artists between them?
Ah oui, a lot. And so some of them are just in between them, but some of them are between them, and they invite, and we give them technical help, but they invite the public over, including us. Some of them are just between the team and myself and them, and we have all the formats possible.
It's amazing how many things you can do. How big is your team? I'm curious. Is it?
No, it's small, but it's also because we're 48, including the electricians, the plumbers, etc. But we're mostly a team of 10, 12, working directly with the cultural programs, the planning for the residencies. It's a bit complicated. There's too many, a lot of people coming in and out. But I think we rely also very much on the dynamics that provide 325 individuals, creative individuals, and also groups of 10, 20, 30, 40, because at some point and at times, they really want to organize or do something together. And so we assist them, but the energy comes also from them. Well, Omar Castillo is Mexican, but he's based in France. He got some training actually in Mexico, and then decided to fly over, and he finished his studies at the art school of Lyon, Lensba, and which is a very famous school. It's a third, rated third in amongst the network of art schools in France. And then he applied for this post-diploma, postgraduate kind of art residency that we have in partnership with the city of Lyon, which runs for a year, from Jan to December or Jan to Jan, something like that. And then, there's a jury that meets in September, and he got selected, and he's now finishing. He still has 2 months to go in Paris, and he's had a wonderful year, very hardworking, very bright, and he's had several exhibitions in extremely good art fairs and galleries. And he's going to leave Cité end of Jan, I believe, and then he will be flying to Mexico back home to see his family, but also to work more on some production, since he's going to have, if my memory is correct, 2 exhibitions in Mexico. So he has turns out to be a truly international artist, transatlantic. So that's for Omar, and for COVID or post-COVID, I think what was important is when we remained open, and so that we could host. Maybe at the beginning, the first confinement was maybe 125 or 150 artists that were stuck here, couldn't fly back, couldn't go back home. And then we gradually also started welcoming French artists who had no money left to pay the rent, etc., and who needed also a space to work in and live in. And so after the second lockdown, when we had curfews, so we were allowed to meet first 4 of us and then 6 of us. And so we organized meetings with professionals, 1 artist meeting 3 professionals, and then 1 artist meeting 5 professionals. And that turned out to be super valuable for artists, but also for professionals who realized or suddenly became aware of the quality of conversation they had with artists. And it's not just about looking at the work in the gallery, it was about really engaging in, I guess, a more profound conversation, but a conversation also that could be followed up, because they could come whenever they wanted to, provided that we had the good format. So that's, and something that we kept and that we have developed quite substantially since, is always to provide a space, not of intimacy, but a space where conversations 1-to-1 or 3-to-1, etc., are possible, and not emphasizing necessarily the day of the opening for artists to meet professionals.
You were also telling us about these conversations and how, like, the importance right now to discuss, to disagree, and to have like a space and let's say like a platform to have these conversations and to talk about even disagreement,
Yeah, I think it's important that an art residency should provide a safe space, and doesn't mean necessarily the same thing in Paris, Marais, than in Mexico City, and or New York, or whatever, Sydney, Australia, etc., Johannesburg. And it's so that is also something to think about, and I think to think about almost on a daily basis. And it's how do you make your space and the space and time hospitable? How do you make, in a city that is not very hospitable? Paris might be the city of light, but it's a rough city. It's hard. So you can feel very lonely in Paris. So how do you change this so that there is a space where artists feel safe, feel protected, and that's what they told us when we went through COVID, so that you feel protected in a sense that you can transform yourself, or you can transform your vision, and you provide a space where there are formal or informal conversations, and you can speak about anything that matters, to understand the world better, to renew your vision, to, work on the form that you want or the artistic form you want to work on. But and this is where also these spaces are important for dissent and disagreement. It's very human to disagree. It's part of our lives, and it's part of disagreements can be extremely constructive. So I think an art residency can be a place where you hear that dissent and you hear that disagreement being transformed. And when you're an international also art residency, as I said earlier, you cannot be more international than Cité. If you look around, it's just amazing. You have every month, it's between people from 65 to 100 different countries. So necessarily, these countries are not necessarily, in agreement with one another. Who cares? Yes. The person comes, etc. And so to provide a space where those conversations and even on dissent or disagreements, to provide those spaces for those conversations to happen, you need to be super neutral. And so you need to think and activate neutrality in a way that actually activates a conversation. I don't know if I'm being clear.
Yes. No, you're completely.
I can't agree more. And I also think that when countries are in a crisis, in political crisis in particular, it is their cultural producers and the artists who can speak and continue a professional connection and just meaningful conversation. And I feel that as a curator or organizer, I want to support those opportunities for them as well.
But thank you so much for the opportunity, and I really hope we get to meet one day for real.
Yes, please. Yes. But thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Thank you.